Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of the Systeme.io podcast with me, Natasha Pinto. Join us as we discuss all things digital marketing and entrepreneurship. Here, online business owners take us on a journey, how they went from zero to launch. Now, today, our guest is Adam Erhart. He is an online marketing strategist and consultant. But really, you do much more than that, right? You're on YouTube, you coach, you create online courses and programs. It's awesome.
Yeah, basically anything and everything in the world of marketing. I don't know. I've got this weird obsession, passion with it that I think is borderline unhealthy and unnatural, but I find it just endlessly fascinating. The whole realm of it, the whole industry, every aspect of it.
Okay, so could you tell us a little bit of how you got into it? Because you started off in something very different. You were a business jet pilot, and
Yes, correct. I
then
started out like the complete, like most irrational, illogical transition ever. So when I first went through school, I trained for business and aviation with the dreams of being a pilot, and that's what I wanted to do. And so went and did that. I was fortunate where I got a really good job, really early on in my career. Had to pay my dues up north for a bit and fly some sketchy planes and load some bags in some pretty miserable conditions. But then yeah, landed this dream job and did it for 7 years, and it was amazing. Flew business jets all over the world for the rich and famous, and amazing clients, amazing experiences. But it just wasn't for me. Like it just, I don't know. I'm a big homebody. I like being home, and of course, the whole nature of being a pilot is you're literally have to leave. That's your job. It's like it's to go places, and so it was cool. But then I was like, yeah, this isn't me. And if you've ever met pilots and they just love it, and that was never really my thing. So I basically quote unquote retired, quit, left, went home with nothing. And I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And so I was like stumbling around, figuring out, I literally don't know what's next. And my wife, who was in business, was like, you should do marketing. I was like, that sounds cool, but I don't know what marketing is. Like, I literally have no idea what it is. And she's like, well, it's this and this. And I don't know, the usual explanation someone gives you. So I was like, okay, well, I got nothing. So let's start looking into it. And literally from like the first second I started to study about it, I was like, well, this is interesting. And so you're telling me that I can make these things and I can use these words and I can make sales and I can grow a business and I can work from home, but I could do this. And all of the pieces started to line up. And so the more that I sort of bit off and the more that I went into it, the more excited I became. And then the evolution just went from there. So I started with building websites because I was like, all right, well, clearly we got to do something online. And then I was like, well, the website's not getting any traffic, so I need SEO. So I started learning SEO. And then I got hooked. I was like, I need more traffic. So I started learning social. And then I wanted more. So we learned ads and Facebook ads and Instagram ads, and this is pre-Instagram ads days, and then Google ads and all of that. And then more. So we started learning content and video and podcasting, and it just kept evolving. And so slowly was able to sort of take everything I learned and start sharing it with other people because I found it just endlessly fascinating.
that's awesome. Now, how did you get out of the hustle culture? Because you've spoken a little bit, I stalked your website a bit, and you
Yeah.
speak about how when you started out, you were doing these like cracking 16-hour days, no days off. How do you get away
Yeah.
from that?
Yeah. So I wish I could say that it was like this epiphany that I had. And I was like, this is an unhealthy way to live. But there's a couple things. First of all, I think those early years, as as unhealthy as they were, and there was definitely a better way, but yeah, it was easily 16-hour days, 7 days a week. And I did it for years. But I think part of that was paying my dues, and part of that was like it really accelerated my growth. So I don't regret it. It was just I probably could have tailored it back a little bit. Like it was a little excessive. So that said, but then literally what happened was it was like I was working one day, it was around 6 years ago, and my wife came to the office and she's like, yeah, you need to come home because you haven't seen like the new baby at all. And this is getting crazy. She's like, so, and it was sort of one of those like really awkward conversations where there wasn't a lot said, but it was sort of this realization that's like, oh man, I got a choice. I can either figure a way to do this or I'm gonna like start losing things badly. So from there, I went from these crazy days, and I started to cut it back dramatically. I started taking one day off a week and working just 12 hours a day, and then I tailored it down to 2 days off, and then to 10 hours, and now I've got a relatively I don't want to say a relaxed schedule because I err on the workaholic side, but technically the way that all of the systems are set up in that I could work if I wanted, say 1 to 2 hours a day. I tend to do about 8 just because I love it, maybe 10 if I sneak a few in there. But yeah, it just sort of came down to a personal crisis more than some big epiphany.
Okay. Well, that's a very, I think, a very honest sharing. And I think people sometimes kind of glamorize this idea of working really, really hard at the beginning. And yeah, you're right, you do
Yeah.
tend to lose things eventually.
You do, yeah.
Now,
You can't do it forever. You're gonna have to pay back, and like you're basically borrowing. And I forget who said the quote, but they're like working any more than 40 hours a week is kind of cheating because you're kind of like you're gonna get diminishing returns. It's not really the way the game's meant to be played, and so yeah, it's I'm certainly more productive now, but a lot of that I think just has to do with a little bit of maturity and a whole lot of experience.
definitely helps. Now, what would your definition of marketing be? So you've given the like sort of generalized definition that people just throw out there. How would you define marketing?
Yeah, so I define marketing as communicating value to your customers. Period. And stop. Like that's my favorite definition. It's taken me a decade to come to, because we can make it whatever we want it to be. But at the end of the day, marketing really is about communication. It's about portraying value. It's about being empathetic. It's about putting yourself in your customer's shoes. It's about hearing their story and then telling their story back to them so they feel understood. So all of those things kind of get wrapped in, and that's what marketing is. Now, what often ends up happening is we confuse it with the tactics and the hacks and the tricks and the algorithms and all of
Yeah.
that. And those are important. They're cool, but they're not the foundational stuff, and they're short-lived. And you can't build a long or sustainable or incredibly profitable career by constantly chasing hacks. And I know that because I tried that and it's exhausting.
Definitely. And I think that's also where like marketing intersects with psychology, where you're putting yourself in your customer's shoes and validating them and making them feel like you've got a relationship with them.
100%. Yeah. Well, it's funny because again, marketing, sales, business in general, we need people. Like it's all about people. It's never about algorithms. It's always about the person on the other end, and the person and the study of behavior and all of that. That's literally what psychology is. So we're going to study it slightly differently because we're more interested in influence and persuasion and trying to impact change in that. But yeah, the better that you understand human behavior and why we do what we do and how to influence that and how to impact that and to guide people, the better you're going to do as a marketer. Like it's not even close. The marketers that understand why the stuff that they're doing and the logic and the strategy behind it are just orders of magnitude more successful than those who are trying to keep up with the latest hacks.
Yeah. So you define that as kind of like the difference between relationship marketing and transactional marketing. And
Mm.
how do you apply that as a consultant? How do you change the minds of people who are so stuck and used to this sales pitch?
Yeah, yeah. So it's one of two things. The first of which is that from taking on a client perspective, I won't necessarily try to change their view. They're either kind of they either agree with it and that's the direction they want to go, or they won't and they'll go that way, and that's cool. They'll come around eventually. But from those that are sort of on the fence, or they're worried about giving up too much short term in favor of the long term, which is kind of what I'm asking to do. It's like we're trying to establish authority and credibility and integrity, and we can't do that with like fake scarcity and fake countdown timers and sales that go on forever and all of these sort of tricks that we use to sort of get someone over the edge. There's an expression that you can sell anything once, but you can't get them to come back and sort of like fool me once, shame on you, etc. So
Yeah.
what ends up happening is we need to create marketing that is valuable in and of itself, meaning that the goodwill that we deliver, the value that we deliver, it's enjoyable whether someone buys your product or service or not. And the more that I can sort of move people in that direction, it's the results speak for themselves. Like it's so much more profitable, and it's way more fun too, because you're never trying to snow somebody or trick them, and all of the things that give marketing this like horrible reputation in the industry of trying to scam people and all of that. Like that's the problem, is it's always based on that quick, how do I make a buck tonight? How do I
Yeah.
beat the system? How do I hack the algorithm? And that's never the answer.
Well, it's definitely not the long game or the long answer. It's a short-term
Yeah.
fix. All right. And then do you have international clients?
Yeah. Because again, it's sort of it doesn't matter. It's funny. Great question, because here's the deal. It's like everybody always asks questions like, well, I have this unique thing that's selling this that's no one's ever seen, or I'm in this industry. Do you have experience here? Or have you ever done a campaign like this, or whatever it is? And in the early days it was no, because obviously brand new. Now I've worked with all kinds of different companies, but the reality is the underlying principles and the fundamentals, like they're the same. Like they're really the same. I mean, there's differences obviously between selling a product and selling a service, and we have to paint a bigger picture with the service and make the intangible more tangible, et cetera, et cetera. But again, those are kind of tricks that we use where the fundamentals are universally applicable. It's like, well, why is someone buying this? What is the need that they're trying to satisfy? What is the benefit that they're trying to get? So that's kind of universal across countries, across different places. Of course, there's cultural norms and differences, and sometimes, like if it's in a culture that I'm really not familiar with, yeah, if I can bring in a local agency or someone that knows the culture better, because there's certain things you do or you don't do, or you say or you don't say, that we just wouldn't be aware of. But as far as human nature, yeah, we're all kind of the same.
Yeah, all the same inside. So
That's
is
it.
it those triggers that get people to buy, they're the same for everyone?
Yeah,
All
they
right.
are. Yes. So what ends up happening is that by leveraging sort of the core drives, the main human drives, and sort of baking that into the marketing, yeah, you can influence, you can sort of guide people in the right direction. And again, what we're not doing is we're never creating desire. So there's this myth that we can make someone want something. We can't do that. What we can do is we can tap into the existing flow of desire and then present our business or offer our product, our solution as the logical answer to whatever it is.
Okay. And then let's dig a little deeper into some of the more common principles applied in marketing psychology. So I'd like to talk first about reciprocity. So at its most basic level, if I do something for you, you'll want to do something for me. But how do you remove that from being super salesy and like, here's this free sample, buy my product?
Yeah. So I think it's funny because so this is going to be like literally the most woo-woo artsy hippie thing. This is the West Coast Canadian part coming out. But like so bear with me through this. However, one thing we didn't talk about is that marketing is very much a transfer of energy, meaning that if you're in just like this horrible state and you're trying to write an ad, like we know like we know that's not a good ad. It's not going to work. However, if you're really passionate about what you do, you believe in what you sell, this was something that helped me overcome sales in the early days, is that I used to be really scared of sales. And then someone asked me, they're like, well, do you believe in what you sell? Does it help people? I said, yeah, absolutely. And they're like, well, what are you doing then? You're being selfish by not sharing it with them. So again, what ends up happening is the best way to overcome any of this sort of sleazy feelings or whatnot is to truly believe in what you're selling and what you're marketing. And if you don't, you should not sell it, period. Like stop it. Just stop it. Like you don't have to sell stuff you don't believe in, you don't like, that you think is not good for people. The next thing is when it comes to, say, reciprocity, which is, yeah, you're absolutely right. It's where we give something, they feel more inclined to give something back. It's very subconscious. It's not like this logical feeling. It's just we create sort of a cognitive dissonance where there's this like, what am I going to do? I gotta do something to pay them back.
Yeah.
But what we do there is we just try to create so much value with almost no expectation of getting anything back. And that's kind of the trick, is that by creating as much good stuff as you can, and again, very woo-woo stuff here, but it's like this karmic energy where we're just helping people as much as we can, knowing it's going to come back. And when you have that attitude, it does. And when you don't have that attitude and you're like, I'm going to give you this, you're going to give me something back, and it's going to be this, and et cetera, that's where you start to look a little sketchy.
Okay, awesome. And then you mentioned scarcity earlier.
Hmm.
So isn't that already pretty generally applied in more transactional focused marketing? So how do you prime a prospect to buying into that without being the quintessential salesman?
Yes. So scarcity is one of my absolute favorites because it is the one of the single biggest forces that you can employ in your marketing. And essentially what we're talking about with scarcity is that it's unavailable, it's going away, it's limited, it's exclusive, not everybody can have it. That makes it more desirable. So there's this basic human drive where we want things that we can't have, we want things that are in short supply. A lot of this has to do with sort of this root and that we don't actually know what we want. So we look to other people, and if they want it, then clearly we must want it as well.
Yeah.
Whole other subject there. The point is, though, with scarcity, there is ethical scarcity. We can make something scarce just by engineering our offer or our product around it. And we should, because given the option to do something now or do something later, most people choose later. And later typically means never, because you're going to be out of their mind. You're going to lose that opportunity, which means, again, you've lost an opportunity to help them. Now, there's a number of different ways to do scarcity. The cheapest, most garbagey tactic ever is like the fake countdown timer. Like we've all seen, it's like, you have 15 minutes, and you refresh the page, like, you have 15 minutes. It's like, oh man, like your goodwill is gone. You might as well just light your brand on fire. So I can't stand any of that. However, what's ethical scarcity is a 15-minute timer that literally expires. and then they can't buy it anymore. And there's all kinds of software that allows us to do this ethically, automatically, and then we can choose if we want to reoffer it. But of course, you don't just have to take it away. You can increase the price, you can offer limited time bonuses, you can offer short-term incentives. Like there's a number of ways to find that fit with your brand and your personality, so you never really need to push things where you're feeling gross. Because the second you feel gross, again, like we know it's probably not right. Like your intuition's probably right. Like if you think it's
Yeah.
sleazy, it's probably sleazy.
Right. And then to touch on what you almost mentioned there, what about social proof? So it's often been a little overused. Is it still valid? Do people still give in to that desire to conform?
Yeah, 100%. It's like it's funny when one of the objections that people have against social proof, and you mentioned it there, Natasha, is like this desire to conform. And like, what about the people that don't want to conform? It's like,
Yeah.
that's cool. They don't want to conform with that, but they still
Yeah.
want to conform with that. Like if you look at any subculture, there's a shocking amount of conformity within that subculture. Any kind of small group, they all dress the same, talk the same, wear the same stuff, buy the same stuff. Like there's all of these different subcultures that are sort of conformity. So what ends up happening is we're always looking as human beings to increase status. And one of the sort of the key arguments, and I wish I could remember who to credit this one to, but they were saying, well, look, I don't want status. I bought a minivan. That's like, clearly that's not a status symbol. And it's like, well, actually, if you peel back the layers, that is a status symbol. It's just a different one. It's because now you're fitting in with the parent group who drops the kid off at school. Like if you rolled up in a Lamborghini, that's going to decrease your status because people are going to be like, who's this person? Why are they driving their kid to school in a Lamborghini? Like it's going to look different. So we're always trying to fit in. We're always trying to look to others that we want to be like or that we aspire to. So that's the key with social proof, is that we want to find people that our customers are either like or aspire to be like. And then we want to share their stories. And that does a couple things. The first of which is that it does make it more believable and it does make it more empowering, but it also shows them that not only is what you're promising possible, but it might just be probable that they can have this outcome as well. So yeah, social proof is still a mandatory element. We simply have to show that it works for other people.
Okay. And then is there another psychological, I suppose, principle that you like to apply to your clients' marketing and in your own?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Good question. So let's let's go deep on this one. There's a concept known as priming that I'm a huge fan of. And what priming is, and it sounds sort of, it's one of those things that's easy to understand and harder to master. So we're gonna throw it out there and then we're going to try to put it to use. But essentially what priming is doing is activating these mental schemas in someone's brain. So what ends up happening is, like, our brains are messy, complicated place. There's a lot of stuff that we have to filter and process and all of that. So we sort of group and categorize different things together in these schemas. And what ends up happening is we have a schema for mother. Could be loving, caring, kind, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, or it could be the opposite, depending on whose schema is. We have schemas for this and for that, or whatever it is. So the thing is that as marketers, if we can activate certain schemas within someone using visual images, using words more often than not, we can actually elicit certain behaviors and certain actions. So an example is, went to dinner with a friend and we're looking over the menu and they're like, hey, you've got to try this dish. It's like the greatest thing they serve at this restaurant, but it was an eggplant dish, and I hate eggplant. I hate eggplant. It's the worst thing. It's slimy and gushy. It's gross. It's called eggplant. Like, nothing about it is appealing, but they're like, look, it's good. Just trust me. You got to try it. So I ordered it. Sure enough, it was literally probably one of the best things I've ever eaten. Like, it was amazing. So what just happened is, by telling you this simple story about how a friend influenced me, I've now activated a schema of being more open-minded, of being adventurous, of being more willing to take risks, and having them pay off positively. So now what happens is I can make an offer and you're going to be more open to that. It's the same way that if I start talking about words like, they did a study actually on this exact thing, and they started using words like seniors and retirement and bingo and Florida, and all of these words typically associated with elderly people. And then they measured the speed with which the people left the study area, and it was physically slower than those who were primed with more neutral terms. So it impacts us, and it does it automatically, it does it subconsciously, it does it all the time. So I'm very cautious and aware of the words that I'm using when I'm trying to put together marketing copy or sales copy or any kind of presentation, so that I'm never activating the wrong schema, and I'm always trying to design sort of the right attitudes and opinions and beliefs and making someone more receptive to the message.
And you'd have to apply, like, appeal to a wider set of schema because everyone's an individual. So some people may have adverse reactions to certain things, but you're playing the like
Again, yeah,
numbers game. Yeah.
that's it again. Well, sort of yes and sort of no, right? Because
Mhm.
again, if you know your market really well, you're going to know, and again, like let's take a subculture. Well, we know that certain terms or certain jargon or tech talk or insider language is going to evoke certain feelings and other ones aren't. So there are exceptions, obviously, but normally, I mean, again, in marketing, we use stereotypes more often than we probably should, but that's because typically if we follow a stereotype and we follow typically people have a good experience with their moms. So we can probably use a decent one there. And people typically have an experience of elderly people moving slower. Are there exceptions? Of course, but like that's the schema that we can use. So we can use these sort of broad guidelines and we're right more often than we're wrong.
Okay, definitely. And then you have a philosophy with your clients of strategy first. So how does that fit into you playing the long game?
Yeah, yeah. So that's one of the biggest mistakes that business owners, entrepreneurs, marketers make is, and again, we sort of touched on this earlier, but it's starting with hearing that, say, TikTok is exploding, like user growth is going through the roof. You've got to get in on this. We saw this, I think it was a year or two ago, LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Everybody was like, LinkedIn organic. That is literally the key. We're getting unbelievable reach. And what ends up happening is we hear about this, we hear about that, we hear about Instagram Reels right now, the algorithms favoring Reels. And even I've talked about how they're actually moving more in that direction. So everybody goes all in. And then they start creating stuff and it bombs. And then they're like, what is wrong with this? Is it me? Is it my content? Is it my offer? Is it marketing in general? And the problem is we've done things completely backwards. We've started with this end result of this tactic, this trick, this media source, without thinking about the logical order of things, which is, hey, what's my business model? Like, what am I trying to sell? What are my margins? Am I profitable here? Is this actually what I want to be selling? And then who's my market? Where are they present and active online? What kind of messages are they going to resonate with? What kind of offers? What kind of pains do they have? What kind of results? And then designing content and marketing around that. And then building out essentially the marketing funnel based on a lot of the stuff we talked about, which is, well, how do we guide them through this process? How do we put the right messages in front of them? How do we evoke different reciprocity and how do we use scarcity and use it ethically? And how do we prime them with different schemas and structure everything out? And when that happens, it doesn't become like 1% better at every step. It sort of compounds on each other. So you end up with these incredibly profitable marketing strategies. But again, it's literally from reverse engineering the whole process and not getting caught up. And I can say this because I did this for years, but like not getting caught up in the shiny object of the day. And like, just because Guru A said, this is where it's at, and Guru B is like, no, this is where it's at. Like, you've got to look at you and your market first.
Yeah, definitely. Because I think lots of people are jumping on this TikTok bandwagon, and I don't know if their business has any business being there.
Yeah. Well, so TikTok's an interesting case study because first of all, yes, right now what we're seeing is the way that the algorithm is designed is you have this quote unquote viral potential, meaning in that it's not search based. They track your behavior. They can look at usage statistics. So some people are growing audiences very quickly. Now, a couple things. First of all, it's still very much B2C. Like, we are seeing better with a sort of a business to consumer market. It is still a younger demographic, although every social media network ages up. So it is a matter of time before it evolves and changes. But that said, you could get in now, but maybe you're better with one of the old guards of like Facebook, as boring, as old, as whatever it is. Like, maybe, like, if you're serving a 60-year-old man in the fishing industry, like, stay up. Like, yeah, you might scrape a few things off TikTok and make a couple things. Maybe you're exceptionally good at it, but like, you're going to be better by sticking to the fundamentals first. And of course, once you've got your primary platform, you can experiment if you have the time, money, and energy to do it. But yeah, you need to make sure things are in alignment rather than just what the hot trend is. Because we've seen this with everything. We saw this with chatbots. We saw this with SMS still kind of goes up and down. We saw this with Instagram, and then Instagram came out and we're like, we're no longer photo sharing and now we're all video, which is kind of a clue as well with where things are going. So yeah.
All right. And then what is your process like? So how long do you spend strategizing with a new client, and what does that depend on?
Yeah. So, well, the time depends on the client, and it's sort of an ongoing iterative process. So basically every week we sort of re-look through things. I wish it wasn't the case, but like, no, obviously we don't go through like a 60-page marketing plan every week or whatever it is, but it's this constant look at model market message media, what's the machine, what's the funnel look like? Like we're always going back over that. So again, what'll happen is a client will typically come to me with a question about, let's say I want to grow a YouTube channel. So it's like, look, I think we're all in on YouTube. We want to grow the channel. And I was like, awesome, that's amazing. Let's look at that. And we'll look at thumbnails and click-through rates and view durations and all of the metrics that go into it. But that'll take about, say, 5 or 10 minutes, 20 minutes maybe. And then I'll say, well, okay, cool. What are we selling? And what are we trying to communicate? And why are we doing this anyway? And hey, what about this? And oh, we tried that before, it didn't work. And it's like, well, did it not work because of this and because of that? And so there's a lot of questioning and sort of analyzing things. And typically in a very short time, around 30, 40 minutes, they'll either be on the right track and we'll confirm it and we'll optimize it, or we'll find out that they've been climbing the wrong ladder, leaning up against the completely wrong wall, and we should pivot. Like if you've been doing something for 6 months and getting nothing, it's probably time to reevaluate. Now, there are some channels like, say, YouTube organic growth. That's going to take some time, but we want to be looking for indicators or KPIs, key performance indicators, that are going to be trending in the right direction so that we know we're on the right path rather than just, lighting half our money on fire.
Definitely. And then can I ask you to peek into the future? So you gave us a little bit of a hint of where Instagram is going. Where do you see the next boom in this? Where do you see the new direction for digital marketing?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah. So it's this is like the most anticlimactic answer ever. So brace yourself, because where marketing is going is actually, and this isn't even my opinion. This is literally what the social media networks have told us verbatim. These are their words, and they've said this is where we're going. Now, I'm going to say it in just a second, but first, we've been saying this for years, like at least for the last 3-4 years. This is where things have been going anyway, and they've been trending in this direction, but people have been slow to catch on to it, or they've been slow to adopt it because it is a little more work and it's not very comfortable. But I think now finally Instagram kind of putting the final nail in the coffin, and the future of marketing, of digital marketing, is very much video. Period. End stop. It's video. Now, email marketing is still amazing. We're still getting phenomenal returns. Content marketing in general, I mean, that obviously lends itself to video. You can SEO optimize different videos. So all of these different facets play into video. But as far as the one area to double down in is 100% video. Now, I'm not just talking about YouTube, but like Instagram Reels, TikTok, if that's your thing, using video ads for Facebook, for Instagram, video content on LinkedIn and creating a marketing funnel around that, still phenomenally effective. But like what's happened is the algorithms, the social media networks have come out and they've literally said video. Like that's it. Like make more video, please, people, make more video. This is what people are watching. And it's not hard to see, right? Like if you imagine flipping through Instagram, for say, and you're looking at images and they're like 2 to 3 second consumption time per image, where a video is going to get 15 seconds or 30 seconds or 60 seconds, which means more money for the platform, which means they're going to show your stuff more because they make more money. It's all just business at the end of the day.
So it's a great way to hook people for a little bit longer because they've got to actually pay attention to what's going on in front of them. They can't just skim a video.
That's it, exactly. It's all about time on site. So it's like if you can start a viewing session and you can keep the viewing session going longer, the algorithm will reward you and reward your content with more reach. I wish it was more complicated. I wish there was like some fancy thing coming out, VR audio signals or whatever it is, but it's none of that. We're so far away from all of that. So the basics for me are, if I had to give some final advice, it'd be like, double down on video, email marketing, and getting your audience off of the video platforms into a controllable asset that you own. Incredibly valuable. You can't, again, I'm very agnostic with the social media networks, like because they're going to do whatever they want to do. So I know what they're there for. I try to help them. They try to help me. We all work together, but I want my audience in an area that I can reach them directly. So email is still the best for that.
Yeah. To take them from social media and then put them onto your website.
You got her. Yeah. 100%.
All right. And then what does the future look like for you? So do you have any medium-term or long-term goals?
Yeah, always. My goal is to, it's literally to just get to keep playing the game. It sounds sort of corny actually, but it's like, but that's really it. Like the reward is to get to keep playing, to get to keep marketing. Every day I study and I learn and I talk to friends and colleagues and mentors and everyone in the industry. And it's fascinating where we're going. It's fascinating to watch the ups and downs and the rides. So yeah, my goal is to keep I'd like to say to keep helping people make better marketing by doing it sort of the right way. So to like, we're always going to have these sort of flash in the pan gurus that come up and they flash a bunch of cash and they advocate some new hack. And there's always going to be people that fall for it a little bit. And that's cool. I think we all had to sort of get that out of our system and realize, yeah, there's a better way. And when we create better marketing, we're actually capable of making real positive impact and change. And that's my long goal.
Oh, that's fantastic. All right. So a couple short questions for
Hey.
our closing. So is there one book or podcast or resource that you would recommend to someone just starting out?
Yeah, just starting out. There's so many. So this is a great question because I've actually have a list of like 100 books and I keep trying to cull it down to like my few. I think if we're just starting out though, there's a few that are worth looking into. One of which is probably 80/20 Sales and Marketing by Perry there. And that is a really good one because it's going to give you a different framework of looking at the small things that have the biggest impact on your business and how to structure things. There's another one called Positioning. That one is an old one and also a classic, and it has to do with sort of understanding like where you fit inside of the business world. So I think between those two, yeah, those are a good start. There's so many more, but we'll start there.
Okay, awesome. And then what advice would you give to your 18-year-old self looking back now?
Oh, yeah, that's funny. What would I give? Oh man, so many pieces. We don't have time for that. I think, what would I give to my 18-year-old self? Yeah, this would be like a 3-hour counseling session. Natasha. I think there's so many things I needed to do better. I think the big one would be, there's going to be a couple, but the big one would be to, first of all, create more than you consume. And I don't care what that is. It could be to write, it could be to make a video, it could be to record audio. I would prefer if you share it with somebody, but even if you don't, to just create stuff, because something really interesting happens is like when you create, when you teach something, you understand it better yourself. And there's this really interesting dynamic. In fact, one of the hacks that I have, I think, for becoming or hitting the level that I have in marketing is very much to do with the fact that I've been creating content for so long and trying to explain it, is that it's just made me have to sort of solidify my knowledge in the way that I describe things and how to represent it. So create, that's a big one. The second thing is, I think, follow your curiosity more than anything. It's like we're all very diverse, multidimensional people with different facets and interests and hobbies and all of that. But if you're curious of like something, anything, just go down that rabbit hole. So buy the book and then see where that book leads you, and then buy the next book and then buy the next course and then attend the seminar and talk to your friend and do whatever you need to do. And your curiosity is really going to guide you in an area that sort of aligns with your skills, and you're going to acquire more of them and you'll become far more valuable. Like there's this expression, I think James Clear has it in his book, Atomic Habits, where he sort of maps it out of like getting 1% better every day. A lot of people have spoken of it before. Very valuable advice. Like if you can try to get 1% better every day, again, it's going to compound. So let's say those for now. And then maybe treat your body better, get some more rest, man. Like yeah, you're not going to live forever. Yeah.
I like that second piece of advice that you shared is quite a cool one. It's very much like Malcolm Gladwell's Outliers, that 10,000 hours to master anything.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, you got to start putting in the 10,000 hours, and the sooner you start, the sooner you'll get there.
Yeah, you very much do. Actually, on that point, there's a really interesting quote. I've got it just highlighted on a book just around the corner, and it's it's why there is no formula for success, or why there's no hack for virality, or how to make something go viral. And it's very much because if there was a formula, other people would know it too. And if other people know it too, other people would have done it too. And if other people have done it, then other people can do it. And therefore, it's the average, it's the norm. So that's why if you want to really push those boundaries, you have to find a way to improve in an area that's unique to you, that you find interesting, where you're going to be able to excel. So yeah, I wish there was a shortcut, but it's blood, sweat, and tears and passion.
Yeah, definitely. And then one last little question. So you learned and taught yourself so many marketing skills that you constantly apply to your clients, to your own business. What is a skill that you don't have that you wish you had? Can be anything.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, I'm always trying to acquire new skills. So what would be the next one that I would like to have? I think one thing that I'm studying right now is actually, and this is more for a personal project. There's going to be some carryover to marketing, but it's almost more personal interest, but it's actually on filmmaking. And the reason is because if you ever watch a film or even a TV show, and you'll notice not only the story and the narrative and all that, but if you look at the different camera angles, and if you look at how they constantly change scenes or camera angles every like 5 to 10 seconds. And what they're doing is they're trying to not only advance the story, but they're trying to keep your attention. And us in marketing, we look at that because it's very artsy and it's very creative, and we often sort of discredit it and be like, yeah, but we're just making an ad. So we can just be like face to camera, blast them with a message. And I think that's very short-sighted. And so what I'm seeing at least is that a lot of the top video ads that we've created, a lot of my top content as well, it's starting to employ more of these kind of filmmaking aspects of it. So different angles, a lot of cuts, a lot of editing, sound design, all of that. So that's what I'm working on now. I'm probably not going to do it for myself once I've learned the basics, but it's important to understand what you're doing so you know how to hire for it, how to get help, and make sure everything's working right.
Yeah, definitely. And I think one of the biggest tricks that filmmaking does for us is suspend disbelief. You can convince people of whatever you want to if you keep them interested and make them part of it.
That's very much it. And that's sort of where the story comes in, and we're keeping someone's attention. And it's a very interesting experience. That's why video ads and video content, it's easier because we're drawing on more senses than we are with text-based or audio-based. I still love it. I think it's important. We should all have text and audio content, but yeah, there's a lot to be said for that.
Video as well. Yeah. All right. Well. And then finally, where can our listeners find you? And I will post your tags in the comments for them as well.
Perfect. So the best place to find me if you want more marketing stuff is YouTube. So you can literally just go look for Adam Erhart or marketing or anything like that, and you will find me there. Also adamerhart.com on the website. And those are the best. You can find me on Instagram. I'm not super active. I'm like kind of posting randomly. Again, I'm heavy on the video channel, although we'll see where things go. But yes, otherwise the website and YouTube.
Okay, awesome. And then Adam, thank you so much for joining me and giving us your time. And thank you to our listeners today. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. If you're listening on a podcasting app, subscribe to the Systeme.io podcast so that you never miss an episode. Systeme is a digital marketing software platform packed with all the tools you need to grow your online business. Thank you.